It's becoming harder and harder, though, to disguise this information, and I want to talk about someone else whose work has inspired me a great deal, Dr. Colin Campbell. His wonderful book called The China Study, which is available now as a book, is the culmination of years and years of research that was done in order to figure out why Americans are so sick and why in rural China they simply don't see the kinds of diseases that we are dying from here in this country. The China Study really examines the source of nutritional confusion produced by powerful lobbies, government entities, and opportunistic scientists. The New York Times has recognized the study, which is really a joint project between China, Oxford, and Cornell, as the Grand Prix of epidemiology. So it's been lauded by some pretty powerful entities, like the New York Times, that have recognized the work as a very comprehensive study that demonstrates the link between our diet and our failing health and the rise of preventable diseases. Dr. Colin Campbell, it's interesting because he explains that when he was a young doctor, he was prescribing the things that all American doctors still prescribe. A traditional meat-based diet. He was raised the way we're all raised. And he was, full of these kinds of beliefs and counseled his patients based on what he believed to be true. He used to promote the meat-based diet. But it all started when he was working with Filipino children who were being diagnosed with liver cancer. And he found that the children who had the most protein in their diets were most likely to develop this cancer. That's what really got him involved in this issue. He says that it was absolutely heretical to say that protein wasn't healthy, but yet he couldn't turn his back on what he was finding, what he was seeing in his own experience as a doctor. And so he began a 20-year partnership with Cornell, with Oxford, and with the Chinese Academy of Preventative Medicine, produced more than 8,000 statistically significant associations between various dietary factors and disease. And of course, our culture loves empirical data. We can't ignore this empirical data. The conclusive point is this, that people who ate the most animal-based foods got the most chronic disease. People who ate the most plant-based foods were the healthiest. And they were the ones that tended to avoid chronic disease. And he couldn't ignore these results. The ChinaStudy.com echoes a lot of the things, a lot of these introductory points that I mentioned, but his book, The China Study, goes into much more detail about his 20-year research project with the Chinese. I mean, things like colon cancer and breast cancer and all of the heart disease, all of these things that we're dying from simply don't exist among the traditional rural Chinese people who eat very little meat in their diets, not because they're so concerned with animal welfare. It simply is seen as a luxury, a rarity. You eat a little bit of it on the weekend when you can. They would never dream of eating it in the quantities that we do here in this country. And in fact, we never did. This is something that is new to us too. The quantity of meat that we eat today has never before been seen in our own history either. And that's why year after year, heart disease ranks as the #1 killer, not accidents, not other kinds of diseases, but heart disease, even before cancer. So it's something we can't ignore any longer. Another obstacle to living better and living healthier and opening up to this kind of information has to do with what I call the protein obsession in this country. We've been led to believe, and I put that in quotes, that we need exorbitant amounts of protein, that we're not getting enough somehow. But this is just an outdated myth. It's an outdated relic from the 30s when malnutrition was a problem generally, and there was this sort of panic and fear about not getting enough nutrients. And we all subscribe to this idea that we need to eat our meat in order to grow up and be big and strong. And of course, the industry is all too happy that we believe this and that we continue to believe this. And incredibly, we do continue to believe this now into the 2000s. Even though more than 30 years ago, the government regulations themselves decreased their own protein recommendations. But the industry is happy to have the fallacy continue. And the ironic part about that is that too much protein is actually harmful. And with that, I'm going to refer to someone else whose book I love, and I had the chance to go see him speak, Dr. Mao Xingni. In his 100 Secrets of Longevity, he talks about the protein myth. Actually, Dr. Mao Xingni, I should say something about Dr. Mao Xingni. He's a 38th generation doctor of Chinese medicine and a co-founder of the Yosan University for Chinese Medicine, which is just down the street. And so I had the chance to see him speak. And it's a terrifically readable book with little tidbits about all things related to health and how we can live longer. And one of the entries says, when it comes to protein, less is more. And he mentions this Western obsession with protein diets, and he says that it's turning out to have potentially fatal results: osteoporosis and kidney failure. Why? Because during protein metabolism, your kidneys must excrete the excess components of protein, namely amino acids. And to complete this process, the kidneys neutralize the acids by binding them to calcium, depleting your body's store of this essential nutrient. The US rate of osteoporosis is dramatically higher than that of China. Like Dr. Campbell, he's looking at the rural Chinese diet where these things, these kinds of preventable diseases are unseen. He says there, the majority of people eat a lower protein vegetarian diet. And they're healthier for it. They're healthier for it. So he's echoing Dr. Campbell and pointing to the rural Chinese diet, which is largely vegetarian because of necessity, and the fact that they're not suffering from the kinds of diseases that we don't have to suffer from. I think the saddest part of the whole thing, this meat-based diet, has to do with children. We have an epidemic of childhood obesity now that we can't ignore. And besides the sedentary lifestyle and other addictions like the sugar addiction, the meat-based diet is very much a part of the lifestyle that has created this problem of childhood obesity. And the industry preys on their innocence and preys on their impressibility and their susceptibility. Their minds are open. And a lot of the advertising that you see, or that they see on commercials all day long, with the number of hours that they spend in front of the TV, they see fast food commercials all day long that are telling them to eat meat and eat more meat at every single meal. And so the fast food restaurants, in that sense, are tributaries of the industry that are telling us that we need to eat meat and that it's a normal part of our diets, and they're grooming the children for a lifetime of heavy meat eating. It kind of reminds me of the cigarette industry, the way they put this glamorous sheen on something that would become a habit. They put a glamorous sheen on it, making it seem like it's something very glamorous, very exciting, very sexy, meanwhile camouflaging the ugliness that lies underneath and the fact that that addiction will kill us. The meat industry makes meat eating seem very natural and very normal and almost clean and righteous. It makes it seem like something that is, well, part of a normal lifestyle, and part of a healthy lifestyle, and part of a clean lifestyle, and even the way we buy meat from the market, packaged nice and clean under the cellophane. We have no idea what the animal went through before it got to the point of market presentation.